Hey, I'm Eiley, and this is episode 2 of It's All Bullshit. The first time I ever tried to get sober, I was 24 years old. I didn't fully understand that I was exhibiting behaviors and habits of alcoholism. When I did eventually start to question my drinking habits, I told myself that I was too young to be an alcoholic. Deep down, though, I knew that once I accepted the label, I would have to get sober. It's hard to explain this thought process, and it's something that people ask me often. I was always a good student, a decent athlete, a hard worker, the youngest daughter. The core of who I am has always been just that. Good. It's not a natural instinct, it's something I try hard at, treating people with kindness, being generous when I can. So I knew that I could not continue to live my life in the shadow of alcohol. I just wouldn't allow it. Even still, I didn't receive my final wake-up call until I hit rock bottom, and we'll get to that. Before we dive into this next part, know that my memory is a bit foggy, and this is just so uncomfortable to talk about. For a full year, I was pulled back and forth between my love for the gym and my dependence on alcohol. I would get sober for a few weeks and be consistent in the gym until I would give in to the temptation yet again. I started adding vodka to my pre-workout, and it felt like the best of both worlds. Eventually, though, the addiction took over and I gave up the gym altogether. As I sit here writing this now, it's the first time that I've ever truly reflected on these years, so bear with me as I piece the timeline together. Everyone drinks in their 20s. At least I'm still working out. It's not like I can't stop. I was just sober for 3 weeks. I had every excuse in the book and every reason to use them. It began like I'm sure it does for anyone else. A screwdriver around a campfire at 19 years old. Let's back up. I grew up in a conservative and religious family. I had a sheltered childhood riddled with rules that felt normal at the time. No dancing, no movie theaters, no makeup, piercings, or tattoos, and of course, no alcohol. I look back on my childhood fondly. I had a loving mom and dad who worked hard to put a roof over the head of 10 children. As I grew into a young adult, I too had to work hard for the things that I wanted. By the time I was 17, I had graduated high school, moved out of state, and had 6 different job titles. That's true. I was already a fully functioning working adult. I left my parents' house the day after I graduated high school, and I hit the ground running. The thing about alcoholism is that it really does sneak up on you. When I took my first drink at 19, I would have never believed that in just a few short years, I would be purchasing a fifth of vodka every single day. Starting shots at 9 a.m. was the only way to soothe my shaking hands. Growing up, I genuinely believed that I would never consume alcohol in my life. I was taught to believe that drinking was a sin, and for that reason, I was never around it. But the world is wide, and I'm an explorer, and so as my radius from home expanded, so did my experiences. Right after my first drink came my first tattoo. I had pierced my ears right after turning 18, and I was starting to discover that there was much more to the world than small-town Minnesota would have allowed me to believe. My love for adventure expanded right alongside my tolerance for alcohol. It happened slowly. Drinks out with friends. Drinks on a first date. Drinks at brunch. Drinks at dinner. Drinks to celebrate. Drinks because you're nervous. Drinks at breakfast. Drinks before work. When was the last time I was sober? How did I even get home? It's fun to drink. I still believe that. In my first year of sobriety, I used to envy those who could drink normally. After 2 years of sobriety, I recognized that many normal drinkers are not normal at all. I'll never forget the 21-year-old woman in my Instagram DMs admitting her alcoholism and begging for help at 21. Her among thousands of others. Normal drinkers recognizing one day that they can no longer stop. 24 hours without alcohol is no longer possible. So now what? And how did we even get here? My second to last attempt at getting sober was the most enlightening of all. At this point, I had grown a following of almost 2 million people on social media and was earning a full-time income online. When I touched down in Bali, I'm sober. I said it to so many of my friends. I had quit my job and booked a one-way flight to Indonesia. I don't remember putting any thought into it. I sold all of my belongings, booked a flight, and took off with no plan and very little in my savings account. I truly did intend to get sober the second my feet hit the ground. The issue was, I was already drunk. Thank you, Korean Air. I knew before I had even reached my accommodation that I would not be getting sober anytime soon. In fact, traveling was probably one of the worst things I could have possibly done at this point in my life. For 5 days, I stayed in my villa ordering bottle after bottle because I was terrified to leave. What have I done? I had no idea where I was, no idea who spoke English, and jumped at every creak of a floorboard. This was the first time in my life that I had ever experienced truly painful anxiety. It cut through my stomach like a knife. The only way I could get to sleep was to drink until I passed out. Nearly a week passed before I ever even left my new home. One day before heading to the beach, I went to take the garbage out. As I lifted the bag, I heard the clanking of multiple bottles of vodka, whiskey, and wine. I had been in this apartment for barely a week. I put the bag down, pulled my bottles from the fridge, dumped them, and continued on with my day, just like a light switch, like I had done many times before. Most of my sobriety attempts ended in what was either a really fun night or a really hard day, and that day came just 2 short weeks later. If you guys are enjoying these videos, please make sure that you're following me on all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and of course here. Thank you so much. I love you guys.